Well, it's not time, but yeah.
I'd just like to welcome everybody. We're going to resume the council meeting on Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. It's 1 p.m. and I'll ask for disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. Anyone? Not seeing any? I'll say. Moved by Councillor Sapula, seconded by Councillor Goida. The council received the confidential verbal report from Peter Pickfield, Garrett Pickfield, LLP regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose with respect to matters before the OMB, University of Guelph, Dufferin Aggregates, zoning bylaw appeal, and that staff proceeds as directed. All in favor? Carried? Okay. Come here. Moved by Councillor Goida, seconded by Councillor Sapoulis, that the minutes of the following minutes be adopted as written and distributed. A, budget meeting December 12th, 2018. B, public meeting December 17th, 2018. C, council meeting December 19th, 2018. D, closed council meeting December 19th, 2018. Any questions or comments on those?
I do just have a quick, I just wanted to make note that on the minutes for Wednesday, December the 19th council meeting, it actually says in the opening statement, December 5th. And then in attendance, it actually still shows Councillor Susan Fielding, and it doesn't show, it just says Mayor James with no last name. So I just.
Yeah, sorry, we caught that afterwards and we're going to fix it. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All in favor? Carried. Keep going. Business rising out of the minutes. Any comments or questions? Councillor Spoulos?
Nope.
Councillor Roth? Councillor Bulmer?
Nope.
Councillor Goida?
No.
I have some to report out of the last minutes. We had the county roads committee meeting, and we discussed the letter that the township sent to the committee in regards to the returning Aberfoyle to a hamlet and reducing the roundabouts possibly to one lane. At this time, they received it as information. They really want to see the Morrison bypass go through. Their opinion is that the county's position is to provide transportation links to the arterial roads, i.e. the 400. I mentioned that there's a provincial highway, 5 kilometers away. So at this stage of the game, they're not really in favor of adjusting the layout. They were in favor of some beautification and possibly some things past the curbs, similar to one council recommended Streetsville I believe it was Streetsville. It's an arterial road, and they had done some things to make it appear as a hamlet. But as for lane reductions, at this point, they're not in favor of changing the layout. We'll keep working on them and keep pushing our cause, but at least they know it's in their minds that it's something we're prioritizing. So, any questions or comments on my comments? No. Okay. All right. So next we'll go. So we need all in favor of that, right? No. Okay. So it's 1:04. So I'll invite Sylvain Sanguilano to come down. And just, you know what? I just want to get my timer going, so bear with me. I'm not texting.
Is this on?
Just give me 1 second. So it's our hope that you're presenting new information, which it does say that in your delegation.
Yes.
And as you're aware, after your presentation, I will ask council if they have any questions for you, and then we'll proceed from there. Okay?
Thank you.
So I'll give you the floor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council and staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. The apparent concern of our government points towards eradicating the black market and promoting safety of our youth. Yet no consideration has been given to the most at-risk underage demographic, the 11 to 18-year-olds, who will continue to be heavily targeted by the black market. How are having legal stores going to keep underage youth safe? False perception of the drug's harmful effects leads to delinquent behavior, mental health issues, and suicide. The misconception of a financial windfall blatantly disregards the inherent costs that accompany legalization. No amount of money can justify negative ramifications. Of the $15 million funding allocation, the Township of Puslinch received an insignificant amount of $5,000. If Ontario's portion of the federal excise duty on recreational cannabis over the first 2 years of legalization exceeds $100 million, the province will provide 50% of the surplus to municipalities who have not opted out. What if Ontario does not meet this criteria? Then no funds will be allocated. What if the province changes its mind and offers a lower percentage? This already happened when the share was reduced from 75 to 50%. One could infer that the surplus funds will be provided on a one-time basis over the 2-year period, not indefinitely. These funds cannot go towards infrastructure or anything unrelated to marijuana legalization. A reporting requirement and supporting documentation will ensure this. Manitoba has reneged on giving money to lower-tier governments. What precludes Ontario from doing the same? The cost would be downloaded to lower tiers, falling on taxpayers. There are no guarantees. Lack of thought and foresight in the rush to make marijuana legal has created chaos. In Canada, the legal amount of marijuana is 6 times more than in Amsterdam. Desperate cultivators turn to black market to get whatever price they can, instead of destroying product they can't unload. Recently, a licensed Canadian cannabis producer purchased illegal, contaminated cannabis from the black market to sell to legal stores. Therefore, it appears both overproduction and shortages equate to a black market boost. Even the AGCO identifies black market infiltrating as a risk. The AGCO lottery date for retail licenses precedes the opt-out date. How much sense does this make if a municipality subsequently opts out? Once the floodgate for unlimited retail licenses opens, it will be well into the 2-year period, decreasing the chances of meeting the excise tax surplus criteria. Issues regarding cannabis legalization are counterintuitive, defy common sense, and cause misunderstanding. This is seen with a disproportionate number of survey respondents and others who voted to opt in. They falsely believe that municipalities have jurisdiction over stores, marijuana will be sold in LCBO stores, medical marijuana will be sold in recreational cannabis stores, the black market will be eradicated, tourists will flock, and store employees will be well educated. A pharmacist must go to school for at least 5 years. What kind of education will one dealing in psychoactive drugs have acquired since legalization? Numerous concerns plague our communities, including opioids, human trafficking, homelessness, and mental illness. Why compound existing challenges? At a time when the landscape of marijuana legalization continues to be unpredictable and constantly changing, it is obvious opting out permanently from allowing marijuana retailers and producers is the best decision. Join the municipalities of Centre Wellington, Erin, and Mapleton and opt out. The opt-in decision is final and irreversible. You will never be allowed to opt out after January 22nd, 2019. While online petitions and surveys can be filled out by anyone living outside an area and repeatedly by the same person, I would like to present a petition signed by over 500 residents and businesses solely in Wellington County requesting municipalities opt out permanently. Thank you very much. May I bring this?
Thank you, Sylvana. I'll open it up to council for questions.
I have no questions.
Councillor Roth,
I have no questions.
Councillor Palmer,
No, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Goyette.
Thank you for your presentation. I have no questions.
I appreciate your presentation as well. I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think council will take a look at the cannabis report. Well, Ms. Sanguiliano is here. So, want to receive her report first? Moved by Councillor Goyda, seconded by Councillor Sepoulis, that council receive presentation by Silvana Sanguiliano with respect to staff report ADM 2019-001 Cannabis Update Retail Stores. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moved by Councillor Goyda, seconded by Councillor Sepoulis, that report ADM 2019-001 regarding cannabis update be received, and that should council wish to opt out of the hosting of cannabis retail stores, that it pass a resolution directing staff as required under the Ontario Regulation 468-18, Section 22, to provide to the register with written notice of a resolution passed to opt out no later than 3 business days after the resolution is passed, and by no later than January 22nd, 2019, and that should council wish to opt in to hosting of cannabis retail stores, that it directs staff to report back on establishment of municipal cannabis retail policy statement, and the council hereby requests the province to require the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario to amend the notification process to provide direct notification regarding a retail cannabis store license application to the municipality, similar to the notification process used to obtain comments from a municipality regarding zoning, building, and fire compliance for a liquor license application. I'll open it up to the floor for Councillor Sepoulis.
Yes, I will be recommending that we not opt out. My concern is that the illegal market is there, and to allow the legal market to proliferate is not a way that we want our youth to get involved with this drug. The other suggestion I'll be making, staff has recommended the Alcohol and Gaming Commission amend the process. I would like to suggest that we add another recommendation, that we request the province to create a 150-meter buffer zone from areas where youth will congregate, such as sports fields, arenas, and recreation centers. The provincial legislation says 150 meters from schools. I liken these other facilities as important. So I'll be asking for that motion.
Okay. Councillor Roth.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if the right term is not opt out or opt in, but I guess I'll say I'm going to vote to opt in.
My understanding is we're in already. It's a question of opting out.
Right.
Okay. so-
Correct, yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I support Councillor Sepoulis' suggestion as well of adding, I think what's going to happen in our framework anyway, as the report recommends, is that if we don't opt out, that we ask for the changes to notification and develop our own policy framework for staff and how to respond. And I would, even if the province doesn't change, I would support that, the language he's talking about around sports fields, community centers and things in our framework. So I support Councillor Sepoulis' direction on this as well.
Thank you. Councillor Goyda.
Yes. So I'm going to apologize in advance because I have a few questions and a few comments that I would like to make on this. My questions are to start to staff, and I apologize for sort of springing this on you. And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. But my first question relates to the excise duty. And that the Government of Ontario has committed that if the excise duty exceeds $100 million in the first 2 years, that the province will provide 50% of that to municipalities that have opted in. Do we know, as of right now, is this a one-time commitment, or is this something that may or could go on continuously after that 2 years is over?
From what I understand, it's a one-time commitment.
Okay, and that's what I thought too. I just wanted to see if there was any indication of anything else. I agree with Councillor Sepoulis' idea that we should recommend specific areas where we would advise against allowing stores. And I know in the recommendation, as it currently stands, the AGCO does not need to provide the township with direct notification of an application. I think it is definitely, I would definitely support this recommendation that we ask that we do get notified directly. However, if today we decide to opt in, are we prepared to be checking that I mean, because I think applications can be received as early as, or we'll know, I guess, as early as next week. Do we have a process in place right now, in the meantime, to determine whether an application has been received within our township?
I think that staff will have to be prudent in checking their website on a almost daily basis for the time being. So if no changes are made to the notification as of right now, the municipality and our staff will have to prepare a process, whereas then we're checking on a daily basis to look for applications within our municipality.
Okay, I just want to make sure that doesn't get missed. Okay. Another question is regarding this municipal cannabis retail policy statement. It's my understanding that the purpose of that would be to identify specific sensitive areas within our township, like the community center, like the parks, like the library, and that policy statement will provide a framework of areas that we as council would decide are not preferable locations. Understanding that the AGCO does not have to take those comments, they can take them at what they want. Am I correct in saying that the purpose of the policy statement is to give delegation of authority to staff to make comments on those applications that may be received within those predetermined areas, so that you don't have to be coming through council and that we can make that 15-day period? Am I understanding that correctly, that that's the purpose of that statement?
So the policy itself should make its way back to council and will get approved by council.
Yes.
And then from then on, yes, it will give staff the ability to provide comments.
Okay, so then my second point to that is if that's the case, how quickly can we put that policy statement together? Because again, applications can be received as of basically now, and we haven't established that yet. So is that something that can be put together quickly and that we can discuss that as soon as our next council meeting, or is that something that's going to take months and months to put together?
I think staff would definitely, because it's time sensitive, would endeavor to complete that as soon as possible. I'm not sure if it's feasible to make the next council meeting, but we certainly would endeavor to meet the next one or the one subsequent to that, the first one in February. So we're aware of the time sensitivity. If council does decide to opt in and to go with a recommendation, which is to prepare the policy, we would certainly endeavor to prepare it as soon as possible.
Okay.
In the circumstance.
Okay. And my last question, which I actually already know the answer to because I asked you yesterday, but I do think it's relevant, my question was, is there any other product that is legal to sell in Canada that as a township we prohibit the sale of within our boundaries?
No, there is not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so those are all my questions. I've been really on the fence about this. I've lost lots of sleep on it. I've made a huge list of pros and a huge list of cons, and I feel that I need to tell council and the community what those reasons are that have persuaded me to go the way that I have. I have listened to all of the opinions and all of the arguments, and I respect all of those opinions and I respect all of those arguments. I think there's plenty of valid schools of thought as to that cannabis is good. I think there's plenty of schools of thought that relate to cannabis being bad, whether it should be available, whether it shouldn't be available. The effects of cannabis are undeniable. But the fact of the matter is that's not really what we're deciding. That's not what we're debating here. It is a legal product, and although we may not all agree with the model that's in place, at this point in time, we just need to make a decision based on the information that is before us and the information that we do know. For me, I think what tips the scale is the safety component. I think that we would be naive to think that by prohibiting by not allowing cannabis retail stores within our township, that we are somehow stopping people from obtaining and using what is now a legal product. I think opting out encourages people to use traditional channels of obtaining marijuana illegally. It encourages them to go to supplies that have risk of being contaminated, being of inferior quality, being of, they don't know what the percentage or the concentration is of THC in it. But even worse than that, those sort of means of obtaining marijuana illegally also put the risk of the people selling those illegal products possibly trying to influence selling other things entirely. That may be a far greater risk and far greater danger. And I think the young people especially can be very susceptible to that. And to me, that's the group mainly that we're trying to protect. I don't think that authenticating the black market of a product that is legal to sell in Canada is something we should promote, and especially because there's no other product that is legal to sell in Canada that we would not allow for sale in the township. Cigarettes aren't good, alcohol's not good, but we don't have any rules within the township that say you can't sell them. And I don't know that there's any rational reason that this is really any different than that. I think that entrepreneurs and employees can benefit from opportunity. But at the end of the day, I think there's no real clear, super clean-cut answer here. But for me, I think that opting in may have less of a negative impact than opting out, and I think it has less risk to human health and human harm, and I am making my decision today based on those components of my list and pros and cons that for me weigh the most heavy, and for me that's the safety, and so I'm going to say that we should opt in or not opt out, I guess.
If I could, Mr. Chair?
Pardon me?
Could I just make one comment?
Sure.
In addition to Bravo, but just to address one of the concerns that Councillor Goyda raised regarding how fast we need to get our policy in place. I think it's important to understand that the first round of licenses are being limited to places that have a population greater than 50,000. So I think we have some time. Staff can take some comfort in the fact that none of the first 25 licenses will be coming here. So we do have some time for that framework, since they've added that requirement for the minimum population of 50,000 for the first 25 stores locations.
And I was going to speak of that as well. I was speaking with Councillor White, and he mentioned that, as well as the lottery system. I think Councillor Sapoulis, she mentioned 12 of them are going to Toronto. There's going to be highly unlikely that we're going to receive a store initially, so we have some time to develop those policies. I agree with your motion that you're going to put forward with protecting these areas where there's young children, and I think that's great. Those are my comments. I think we're looking for. Are you going to put your motion forward?
Yes, in addition to the staff motion, my motion would be that we request the province to create a 150-meter buffer zone from areas where youth congregate, such as sports fields, arenas, recreation centers, and Councillor Goda mentioned libraries, so I'll include that as well.
Okay, so we'll take the main motion, which was on the floor, and we will just amend it, which is the council has now chosen to opt in. We'll keep all of the wording with respect to establishing a policy and notifying AGCO, and we'll add the wording about the 150 buffer.
Not opt out.
Not, the wording is that council opts in. That is the wording in the resolution. So, and the movers were Councillor Goyda and Sapoulis. So if you guys are okay with that amendment, we can pass that as amended.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. All right. Where are we back to? Public communications. Let me just scroll up here. All right. We have the update from the 2009 Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, correspondence from the Ministry of Finance dated December 21st, 2018. Any comments or questions?
Yes, I was wondering if the mayor could advise us of what the county and the other municipalities are doing with respect to this issue, because it is important for everybody. I'm sure all the councillors feel the same way.
Absolutely. It's on every committee meeting. It's coming up in conversation. This is, anywhere from 10 to higher % of our budgets for each municipality. Right now, I can forward it to the council members. Warden Linton penned a letter directly to Minister Fideli, stating how important this funding is and how our rural communities need this. Mayor White also asked that I write an individual letter, as hopefully council's in support of that. He didn't. His opinion was that it would carry a little more weight than a resolution. So I sent a draft to Deputy Clerk Nina today, and it's just trying to reiterate how important this funding is for rural communities. And some of the language used in this letter, if you scroll through it, it says value for money, and I reiterate how well our township operates on a very small amount of taxpayer revenue, and that we're very fiscally responsible, and they want to get back to rural and northern communities, and we're a rural community. So I'm getting a little off track, Councillor Spoulos, but we're a rural community surrounded by large municipalities, so this is what we're trying to reiterate to the Minister of Finance, that we need this funding. And at the Roma conference, there's a delegation request to speak of this as well. So it's definitely on the front burner, and we're trying to do a collaborative pressure towards the Minister of Finance to keep this funding, because we're all aware that it's very important.
I would support you writing the letter.
Okay. Any other? So Councillor...
I would as well support that.
Councillor Bulmer?
Yep.
Councillor Goyda?
Yes, me as well.
I appreciate that. I'll send you the draft as well, and I'm always open to some feedback. I don't want a complete rewrite, but okay. So the next one is the tipping fee increase. So we have a correspondence from Wellington County dated December 17th, 2018. Any questions or comments, Councillor Spoulos?
Not on the tipping fee, no.
Councillor Roth?
No.
Councillor Bulmer?
Oh, it looks like it's now the same as the City of Guelph. That's what I paid last time I went to the one up the road from me, so it seems to be in line.
I think it's a negligible increase. Councillor Goyda?
Nope.
Okay. Then we have the James Dick reactivation of the Glen Christie Quarry. Correspondence from James Dick Construction dated December 4th, 2018. Councillor Spoulos?
Yes, in there they extend an invitation for council to visit the pits. I'm going to suggest that we do that. Visit the pit and ask staff to make the appropriate arrangements.
Hopefully after January. What time? Do you have a specific time?
If you have a concern with a particular time, that's fine.
Just we're busy with.
Yeah, that's fine. After the budget, of course, and
Yeah.
after we've done the budgets, maybe March, April type of thing.
And we might want the snow and the mud. To,
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll leave it with staff.
Well, maybe you can see the gravel roads there, too.
Yeah. We could go rent a bus and go for a drive. Councillor Roth? Any questions?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in this letter, especially since this is the home team in the aggregate industry in Ontario. They've been operating since May, but they make no mention of when they're blasting, and I think that's what the neighbors' concerns are. And they must have some kind of a schedule, or at least what hours in a day they can blast. I think it would be pretty decent of them to let the neighbors know that. We certainly can't stop them from blasting, but if we could, I'm not impressed with their letter at all. It doesn't, I think, do what we intended it to do. And, the neighbors were concerned about blasting. They're not concerned about anything else in this letter, and they don't even mention it. So I think we should ask them to send another letter to the neighbors and say, something to the effect of when they're blasting. They must have some kind of a schedule. Maybe they can only blast, like they must know what days in the week they can blast. At least are they going to be blasting on a Sunday? Anyway, I think that we owe that to the neighbors in the area. that's all I have.
So just a letter stating their schedule for blasting, essentially,
Well,
or operations in general.
well,
With
some
blasting
mention of
courses.
blasting. They don't even tell the neighbors when, if the neighbors knew they were gonna blast Monday through Friday between
Noon and
9
2.
and 5, at least it would be something better than they have now.
Okay.
Well, I believe Council Bomer passed a motion last time on this issue, to be notified of the blasting, so I don't know where that stands with staff.
That's what prompted this.
I think that's what prompted this letter.
And they didn't,
Didn't answer the question, then, okay, understand.
so, Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't caught that in the letter, because I did realize, I noticed in the letter they'd been operating since May, and I think I heard from the CAO at our last meeting that it was after receiving this letter, then the residents complained, so they had been blasting since May, but didn't complain until the letter was received, possibly because they didn't know what the noise was coming from. But I think maybe we should do just a bit of homework, or maybe ask the operator. This is a fairly old license. I don't know, we should maybe pull that site, if there may not even be a site plan for this, or there may not be any conditions of license, so that's something else we might want to ask them, just to, I don't know who our in-house specialist would be to ask.
We can certainly look into it. We can look into their site plan and the conditions of license and,
Yeah.
and review, and then pending that doesn't answer, we can certainly send some correspondence to the quarry asking them to clarify
Clarify that.
the hours. Yes,
Because it was
certainly.
nice of them to do this, and there's no requirement, but, thank you.
Councillor Bulmer, Councillor Goida?
I have no comments, thanks.
Okay. Just to add to your comment, Councillor Bulmer, when we were at the orientation for the county, the CAO said that the township received a complaint of, do you remember the wording? But it was blasting is what it boiled down to, but somebody had called in complaints hearing explosions or something, so, so they've been operating since May. Now, whether that corresponds with this letter,
Yeah, I don't know.
but I'd like to see a little more clarification with their operation, and then also the site plan agreement, if there might be some stipulation that they can only blast at certain times, because it is such an old agreement. In saying that, there probably wasn't as many residents as close to that operation when that agreement was in place, possibly, so anyways, that'd be, yeah, I'd like to see that as well. Okay. What's the next one? All right, so we have the monthly monitoring report. Mill Creek, pit license number 5738. Correspondence from Dufferin Aggregates dated December 12th, 2018. Comments?
No.
Councillor Roth? Councillor Bulmer? Councillor Goida?
Nope.
I have no comments either. We have the Collaborative Research and Development Grants Project entitled Advancement of Groundwater Multi-Level System Technologies. Do I need to read all of this? Any comments, Councillor Spillis?
Nope.
Councillor Roth?
No.
Bulmer?
Yeah, two things. I think this is great. I had a chance to talk to Dr. Parker just shortly after this was granted, that they got news of this, to confirm that this will include an analysis or studying of the cross-connection wells that have been drilled here in the township that are of a concern in terms of connecting the shallow aquifer to the deep, traditionally protected aquifer. You know, there's been lots of wells drilled through the aquitard, the protective aquitard, and they're going to be looking at the impact of that. The question I had, I couldn't make out from when I read it, what our commitment, I read lots of numbers in terms of partners. I seem to recall that we'd opted out of providing a financial commitment, but since we're mentioned on this, was it simply an in-kind support of this, or was there additional funding that I'd forgotten about?
Yes, so we are providing in-kind support through Kyle Davis, our risk management
Okay.
official.
And not through Mr. Denho, just through Kyle Davis?
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much.
no problem.
No comments.
I don't have any comments either on that. Okay. Let's, Orga Conference. Municipal Delegations for Ontario Good Roads Association Conference. Councillor Sapoulis.
I assume since we're going to the Roma conference, we're not going to make up any delegation to this committee.
Yeah, I feel we'd double up if we did. Councillor Roth.
I don't know who's going to this, so whether we even have anyone going, so.
I'm going.
You're going, you're the only one going?
as far as I know.
Well, then I guess it's up to you if you want to make a delegation.
Well, I had the conversation with Nina or Karen, was it you, Nina? Anyways, you know, the flavor at the county and talking with the other municipalities with this current government is we don't want to come off too strong. I don't want to double up and be talking to them twice about the same topic. So we're going to focus on Roma. When there's more representation there, I'm going to attend OGRA. And at this point, I believe that's kind of the avenue we're going to take. Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you. The only thing that came to mind, although it might be of interest for both, but we've already got our applications in for Roma, was we have several residents along the Highway 6 corridor with those crazy well test results, water sampling results, and I didn't know, I mean, this may not be a delegation piece, but maybe, I'm concerned that whoever the MTO hired, you know, really made a mess and scared a lot of people down there, and I didn't know if that was something we could get the message through to the upper staff to have that work properly done for the residents, but I know we talked about that. I don't remember if we talked about it at a meeting or not, but that is an issue that still I heard about it a couple times over the holidays from people down there asking about these tests, and several of them had gone to the health unit to get just the basic test, but that still left them with all of these initial tests and full spectrum tests that may be significantly contaminated or faulty. And I think those residents deserve to have something better than that, especially if it's going to be used in the future to show no impact of the highway. And not to derail the Highway 6 bypass, but I think our residents down that way are deserving of accurate background testing. So I don't know how the rest of council feels about whether this is a delegation or that. I know we talked about it somewhat, but I don't know what's come of it.
I think
I can just give a quick update. I do believe we spoke to the company that was hired by the ministry, I believe earlier in the summer when an incident did occur, and brought it to their attention, but and that matter was settled, but we hadn't had any correspondence past that. Staff is more than comfortable to send correspondence, a letter advising of council's concern, if that is what you guys choose.
Councillor Roth?
I thought the health department was involved in this, from the Guelph Dufferin Health Unit, and they were notifying the neighbors because of the way the testing was done. It wasn't done correctly. They were doing
right.
it from outside taps and garden
right.
hoses, and so it was basically a false alarm. And I thought, we've had this discussion in December, I believe. Maybe it was even earlier than that, but I thought it was all looked after, that the neighbors were told that the testing was done incorrectly.
That's right.
So why, where can we go from there?
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair, the health unit testing was not the same testing that was done by the consultant for the MTO. The health unit only tests those two types for the safety to drink. The full testing that was being done by the MTO, if you see the results that people were getting, include a full spectrum analysis of other things. In what you typically see in a pre-development and post-development situation, where determining what the water quality or profile is prior to disturbance in the area. And I don't know whether if there was a problem down the road, if they would take the information from the health unit as being the same, because it was only gathered by the homeowner themselves, whereas the samples that were collected on behalf of the MTO were collected by a consultant of some sort. So it comes down to a question of who is the MTO going to believe in the future, if in the future there's a problem, or how can we show that there isn't? How can the MTO show there isn't a problem if the original samples, background samples, were faulty in some way? And it's for the protection of those residents that I'd like to see that we ask the ministry to redo those and not have them be so poorly done.
Is there a standard for, water sampling or the process? I mean, is the issue they're running into is that people are not home, so they come up to the door and they have to go to the side hose bib and take a sample? How do we ensure that the process is done properly? Is there a body?
I expect there are process. If we ask our own township hydrogeologists, they do this work all the time. And because they're involved in taking those samples before, I've had my well done as part, when we had a development next door to us, it was sampled appropriately and full spectrum analysis done to determine pre and post water quality, and, you
I just don't
know.
want a repeat of this exact same.
Well, it's exactly, but it won't be us doing it. It's just obviously that the consultant did this, really messed it up, and it's not fair to our residents to not have proper background information. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't think we should make a delegation. I think we should approach the project management staff and ask them to confirm it. Because I think you should go up the chain of command. If you go over the top, you run the risk of alienating the staff.
Understood, yeah.
So my approach is not a delegation matter, but we write to the project team asking them to redo the tests.
Properly.
Councilor Guina?
Yeah, I would agree with that, yeah.
Recommendation. Everybody in favor of that? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bulmer. Where was I? Oh, so, we're on to decision on who will represent the township at top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario, otherwise known as TAPMO. I might as well just speak of it first. I spoke with the acting chair at the Ontario Sandstone and Gravel Association. It was one of the first functions I went to. She indicated interest in being the chair. So I said I was comfortable with that and that I would just represent the township as a member. If somebody else has more interest than I do, we can discuss that, but that's where we are right now, so. Councillor Roth?
Yeah, okay. No, I support you being on the committee. I think having the mayor there adds a lot of weight to the issue.
Okay. Councillor Roth?
Yeah, I agree. I think when this group was first set up, it was meant for the mayors of the municipalities to sit on this. So, not necessarily that you should chair it, but I think you should be our representation on it.
Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, I'd support that, and glad to be the alternate if you can't make it.
I would accept that, for sure. Councillor?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
I believe when I spoke to her last, we were going to touch base at Roma. I think that's when they have one of their first meetings. So I haven't received any correspondence yet, but I'm sure something will come down the pipe. All right. So into here we go. Moved by Councillor Spoulas, seconded by Councillor Goyda, that the intergovernmental affair correspondence items listed on the council agenda for January 9, 2019 council meeting be received. So intergovernmental, here we go. So we have the GRCA current, looks like flyer newsletter. Any comments or questions on that? Councillor Spoulas, Councillor Roth, Councillor Bulmer, Councillor Goyda.
The only comment I have is that in reading it, I guess that's the last time it's being produced. And so it mentions in there that they now have a different publication, and I don't remember what it was called now. And I'm just wondering, and it may already be, but I'm just wondering if that new publication can be included in our agenda package instead of this one that we were receiving before.
Certainly, yes.
So any other comments to her comments? Okay, the next one is the environmental registry. Where are we here? So any comments or questions on this environmental registry? Councillor Spoulas?
Yes, the application is for 10 years. I will be recommending that we put a motion forward saying it's for 5 years. Given the climate change that everybody's concerned about, I think it'd be prudent to start limiting these applications to 5 years, not 10 years.
Now, do we want to discuss the correspondence or discuss just the motion? Or should we?
Well, the EBR basically says 10 years, and that's my comments with respect to the EBR. And it's the same thing with 786, so two, I think, go together.
Councillor Roth?
Yeah, I agree. I think as long as I've been in council, we've been asking for 5-year periods instead of 10. Whether we get them or not is another story, but I think we should do that.
Councillor Roth, do you want to second that motion? And that way it's formally on the table?
Sure.
Okay. Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, my first reading through this one, I thought, as Councillor Rose said, we've been asking for 5 years on just about every water taking permit. But this one has an extra element of I'm not going to say the word. This is an applicant who is seeking to expand the operation and claiming they'll be able to be done in 2 to 3 years, and yet they're asking for a 10-year water taking permit to support those operations. This just smacks of inconsistency. Perhaps it's just one arm not talking to the other. I don't know, but I'd even go as far to say 3 years, just to be consistent with what kind of we've heard, they'll be done and dusted there within 3 years. So why we need more than that?
I would perhaps make it more general, just say for the time that they required, which is anticipated to be 3 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
be consistent.
So you're accepting that?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Goyda?
I guess my only question would be if we're saying that we're going to be consistent and we've always asked for 5 years to 3 years, or changing that requirement make sense? I guess I'm kind of indifferent either way. It's just something to think
Yes.
about.
I understand.
I agree. If we reduce it to 3 and then they plead the case that, oh, it all depends on the economy.
Yes,
and
yes.
how much aggregate we're going to take, and the next thing you know, they
Yeah,
give
yeah,
10. You know, I think maybe, and then my other concern is if we go to 3, we just get dismissed
Yep.
because we're being greedy. So the 5 years would accomplish what we're looking for.
Sure.
I'd like to maybe propose amending the motion back to 5.
Sure, no problem. We'll do that.
And I saw Councillor Roth as a seconder. Is there any other comments before I call for a vote on it? No? Okay, so all in favor of Councillor Spools? Carried. Well, you wanted to add number 6, but we'll just quickly do it when we get to it. So we're going to move on to this environmental registry alert email correspondence for the green relief, or so it says postage new instrument decision notice. Is this the one that we?
Yeah, sorry. They had incorrectly noted as a postage address. It is not a postage address, so it doesn't apply to us.
Okay. So I'll still open it for comments or questions. Anybody, Councillor Spools?
Well, that was my comment. It was going to be, it's not us.
So, Councillor Roth?
What's the comment on if it's not?
Well, I know, but I'm just following Robert's rules. Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, I recognize that this may be outside the boundary of our municipality, but that doesn't mean that we don't. If it was a significant taking, we have commented on water takings on our
Boundaries.
boundaries before. For example, the city of Cambridge takings are not within our municipal boundaries, but we do comment on them. So I wouldn't want to stop receiving these just in case it was a significant and did have an potential impact on any of our residents' wells. So, thanks.
Councillor Gwynna?
I have no comment, thanks.
That's a great comment, Matthew Bulmer. Is just looking at the bigger picture, so thank you for that. Okay, so we'll move on to the next correspondence, or intergovernmental affairs, sorry. Ontario government for the people is committed to protecting water for families. Any comments or questions on that, Councillor Spools?
Nope.
Councillor Roth? Councillor Bulmer? Councillor Goyda?
No.
The Minister's Annual Report on Drinking Water 2018. Any questions or comments? Councillor Spools? Councillor Roth? Councillor Bulmer? Councillor Goyda?
No.
Right. Okay, this is for information purposes, I believe. It was an email. It says that you may want to examine the wording of a new regulation on the following website. I found that link to be not working for my computer, so I had to come into the office, but any questions or comments on that one?
Well, I looked at the link, it's 2016, so it's nothing new there. It's basically the same. So I checked with our deputy CAO, and she said this is for the previous one we discussed, the CRH type of thing. So it's a repeat of that. They're providing more succinct information.
Councillor Roth?
No.
Councillor Bulmer?
No.
As well. And this is, the next one is this dated December 21st, 2018, financial risk for property taxpayers and municipal budgets. Yeah, we're well aware of our issues, so Councillor Spoolis?
No more questions.
Councillor Roth?
I think this was been discussed.
Yeah. Councillor Bulmer?
No.
Okay. All right, the GRCA attendance sheet. Any comments, questions? I'm glad to see our representative attended. Councillor Roth?
No.
Councillor Ballmer?
No, I'm not the school teacher.
No.
Councillor Goida?
No, thanks.
All right, and maintain, this is a fairly important one, I believe. Maintain the voters list for the municipal elections. This is from the city of Hamilton regarding, MPAC, updating the voters list. Councillor Spoulis.
Yes, I asked staff if they agree with the issues identified in the process to move forward, and they said yes. So I'm going to suggest that we make a motion supporting the undertaking proposed by Hamilton.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Goida. All right, so Councillor Roth, any questions?
I agree.
Councillor Ballmer?
Makes sense.
Yep.
I agree as well.
I agree as well. My wife received two of them. There was somebody in Mill Creek. Their sons were on the list. They had never lived in there, and I'm not critical of them. I'm just saying it always needs updating. It needs some more work. So I accept that. So all in favor? Carried. You'll have to get that one to me later, right? I think that's it for IG, right? So moved by Councillor Sepoulis, seconded by Councillor Goida, that the intergovernmental affairs correspondence items listed on the council agenda for the January 9th, 2019 council meeting be received. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Next page. Where are we? Yes, okay. Moved by Councillor Sepoulis, seconded by Councillor Goya, that the report Finance-2019-002 regarding the 2019 interim property tax levy and due dates be received, and that council enact a bylaw to provide the levy and collection of the 2019 interim tax levy. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moved by Councillor Sepoulis, seconded by Councillor Goida, that council receives report ADM 2019-002 regarding council appointments to the committees, and that the following appointments be made to the committees identified below. So we have to discuss this, right? All right, so do you have it on here, what people have put in for?
It's on the page 96.
96.
Yeah.
This is, there we go. Thank you. All right, so I'll start with the ones that are, so we can, I've never done one of these before. So, yeah, Planning and Development Advisory Committee, Councillor Spoulis has put interest in for that. I don't see any other, do we have to ask for votes on that, or?
So if they all just agree, we can just proceed.
Okay.
I would just ask if anyone else is present to make time.
Okay, so if anybody else is interested, now's your time to speak up or forever.
Getting married.
Yeah, any interest? Okay, well, congratulations, Councillor Spoulis. I think you do a wonderful job. Portsmouth Heritage Committee, we don't, do we have interest in that? Councillor Ballmer?
Sure.
Is
Thank
there
you.
any other interests? I'm going to wait. I'll see once, I have a few in mind already, and I'll, if nobody is opting into some of these blank ones, then I'll possibly volunteer. Okay, so Recreation Committee, we have interest from Councillor Goida. Any other interests? And as the mayor, I'm already on the committee, so recreation is a big part of mine, so I'll be attending. It's just,
Okay.
I'm not gonna take the spot. From you. Okay. Sure.
Sorry, I just wanted to make one announcement. Council Ballmer brought it to our attention that we had listed the Accessibility Advisory Committee through Wellington County next. The county makes their own appointments to that committee, so we can omit that committee and we can proceed with the remaining ones.
So we have Emergency Management, alternate to the mayor, and we have Councillor Goida as optioning in. Anyone else interested in that? Councillor Roth?
No, I'm not interested, but I have a question.
Go.
If I understood correctly, last council meeting, you said that if there's an emergency, you would not be here. You would be at your job in golf,
I'm working.
only if you're working?
Only if I'm working, yeah.
Okay, well, that's different then, because what I understood that you wouldn't be able to attend any emergency sessions on behalf of the township. And
No.
then my next question would be, should we appoint you? But Okay, then I'm fine with it. That's-
Yeah, it's just when I'm working 24 hours.
Okay, I misunderstood.
I just can't leave, right? So,
Good.
I just wanted to add one more comment. I did speak to the county, to the Emergency Management Department. They did say that there is nothing to preclude you from appointing an alternate to the alternate, should you be on call, or, so it is up to the discretion of council if they did want to appoint an alternate to the alternate.
the only time I would maybe see it as needing that is if it's the month that maybe Jessica is the deputy mayor. So maybe we could just default to whoever's on call for the month of January, February, you would default, and would that work, or do we really, I don't know,
Need that.
yeah, so I think we can just leave it as,
I originally put my name down, but after I spoke to staff, Council Goyde expects interest, so I said that's fine, she needs the experience. So.
A lot of training.
So if you want the alternate, I'll be willing to do that, if that's if you want.
And I'll be the alternate to the alternate.
and I'll be the, no, wait, it's all because of me. Yeah, I'm in support of that, Councilor Spillis, if you want to be the
good.
second alternate. All right, the Green Legacy, Wellington County, we have Councilor Roth and Councilor Sapoulis both up,
Councillor Baldwin as well.
and Councilor Bulmer, you're interested as well?
Yeah, sure, if someone else is desperate, I've served a couple of years on that committee.
Well, one thing I would like to say is I want the workload for these committees spread out evenly across council. I think that's our role, to be out in the community, so I would not want to see somebody with 8 and somebody with 1, and we'll try to get an equal balance, if that's possible. So if you have something that's true to your heart and you really want to be on it, that's where I think you should keep your name in the fold, but if there's multiple. So, Councilor, so how do we go? Do we have a vote, or how do we just?
We can discuss it.
Well, I think we can work it out.
Yeah. So we have 3 there for the Green Legacy.
I'll drop off.
Okay. So that's down to 2.
I guess the way I look at it, he who runs the the tree program should be on here, so
Sure, that's fine, I'll let John, I mean, as I say, I've done my turn, if someone else wants to
I'll
serve.
be on it.
Okay. Sure. All right, we have Friends of Mill Creek, we have Councilor Goyda. And any other interests in there?
I'll attend anyway, whether I'm an appointment or not.
Okay. I think you just got a new spot. Hamilton Source Water, Halton Hamilton Source Water Protection for 2022. I don't have anything on there. I could put my name forward for that. I live in the.
Well, I was going to put my name for him, but I'm already on the Lake Erie Source Water Protection Committee representing the township and the rest of the county that has the interface with the Grand River watershed. So I couldn't do. I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to do so.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
Dave Rogers.
Is there any other interests in the Halton Source?
We have a citizen on there already, Dave
we?
Rogers. He's the
Correct.
expert on the source.
I'm good with leaving it with
Yep.
David Rogers. I'm just trying to fill blanks, so I have enough. I'm busy, man, so. So is council okay with leaving us David Rogers? Okay, that's excellent.
Is he willing to stand?
If he applies.
If he applies. So,
Well, so council can appoint him right now. We can contact him and see if he is still interested. If he's not, when we go out to do the citizen appointments, then we'll add that to our list of committees. But as we move for right now, if council's okay, then from what I understand, you have appointed him. And then if he is unable to or not interested, then we will take it out to the public.
all right, so next is the Halton Conservation Authority. Is there anyone interested in sitting on the Halton Conservation Authority? Councillor, well, do we have to go in the same order?
I'm already on the Lake Erie Source Protection Committee, so I really don't think it'd be appropriate for me to belong to any of these.
Gilmore, yes. Yeah.
Councillor Roth, you had your.
Which one are we on here? I'm sorry.
Halton.
Okay, no. We have a citizen on that as well,
Yep.
Who's that?
Steve Gilmore.
Okay, I'll put myself as an alternate if he opts to not run. My house is in the Halton Conservation Authority area, so that might be appropriate if he doesn't want to take the appointment. Hamilton Conservation Authority 2022 as well.
That's the one I was going to speak to.
Okay, so
This is one that
Susan.
ex-counselor, past counselor.
Ex-counselor.
I had a discussion with her one day this week, and she's very interested in sitting on it again. So I'd like to make a recommendation to council that we appoint her for 4 more years.
Okay.
She's the current chair, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she is the current chair, and we already have to extend her duration to April, I believe, because she is the
Yeah.
acting chair. So
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting we appoint her for another 4 years.
I'll
Yeah.
second that.
Yeah.
Do we need a vote on it? All in favor? Yeah, carried. Yeah. Okay. Pussonsh Lake Conservation Association. We have expression of interest from Councillor Roth. Any other interests? Now, are we allowed, I guess, are these committees I can attend as well, right? Or only the appointee?
That one is not one of ours, so you're not technically ex officio. So it would really be up to them and their constitution, yeah.
So Councillor Roth, you're going to stand for that?
I guess.
Okay.
You've done well there.
Okay.
Amazing.
Now we're on to Safe Communities Wellington, and we have Councillor Goida and Councillor Sapoulis.
I'm fine with Councillor Goida taking it.
I was just going to say too, I'm okay with Councillor Sapoulis taking it. And I'm only saying that because there's one committee that's actually not listed on here, and that's the Early Years Community Advisory Group, which, in speaking with Susan Fielding, she was the council representative for that prior to now. And I think that's something that we should continue. I think it's an important initiative, and I would be happy to volunteer myself to be on that committee. I just have to be careful how much I commit myself to. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are.
Well, no, it's up to you. If you want to take the other one instead of this one, I'll take this one. That's
Okay.
Or I can, if it doesn't help it, do you want me to take this one? If you both want out of it?
I'm easy, Councillor.
I can't remember how many are left.
There's only 3 left after this.
Because I've only got one so far, so I don't want to.
Okay, so I'll back off. You can take this. So I've got 2 plus the Lake Erie, so technically I got 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got AAC still, so I've got 2 out of, this will give me my 3.
Okay. What's your position on, so you're going to back out, so
We can come back.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I'm happy to do that if everyone is in support of the Early Years Committee.
the Well Interface Committee, we have Councillor Roth and Councillor Sapoulis. If Councillor Roth is interested in taking it, and you already have 3.
So I'll back off out of the remaining, so I think it'd be good to have one person doing both well
Yes.
committees. So I'll back off out of the other 2,
So that would be the next one as well, the Well Protection Committee.
correct?
Okay.
Just one update on that. I put my email to the deputy CAO regarding the Guelph one. I seem to recall, maybe staff can confirm this, I don't think we ever ratified the terms of the Guelph Well Interference Committee when it was first structured. And maybe it might be beneficial just to bring those forward for a review to see if there's, what we actually are getting ourselves into with that. Because I was the representative, never got called. The city's usually been very good about dealing with any problems, but
Yeah, correct. So, yep, you are called only if there's, if it is necessary. I'm not certain that the terms are ratified, so certainly I can look into it and bring it back to council. Yep.
Okay, and the last one is Wellington Farm and Home Safety. Councillor Roth, I don't want to speak for you, but that'll be your 4th, at least. And I don't know if there's any other interests to sit on that, or do you still want to take that on, Councillor Roth?
Sure.
I would, because
You can if you want. I mean, I don't farm, but I do have a home.
I'm in the same boat. I was thinking, but
I don't even know how often they meet.
well, that's what I was trying to figure out. too.
I mean, some of these committees meet quarterly, some meet never, some meet, so, I mean, the number of committees isn't
That's right.
yeah.
the shift of responsibility, it's how often some of these committees meet. And the one that I'm on at PLCA, like, those are long meetings, I go, so they're worth probably about 3 of these committees. So you also have to look at it that way. I don't care, I'll sit on this committee. If Councillor Bowman wants to, he's more than welcome to, because it does, I think, pertain more to farming You're on a farm?
Yeah, you've owned a farm, if you don't mind, Councillor Bulmer.
But
I don't mind, just didn't know what day of the week they met, and if it interfered with anything else that I'm already on. That's because I seem to recall it might be a Wednesday meeting.
maybe some information we should have when we're doing.
Yeah, and my apologies. I can come back with that, Councillor Bulmer, and if you're unavailable, then we can appoint an alternate now if you guys would like. We can put Councillor Rose.
Attending because it was a Wednesday, I think they were Wednesday nights of our
Of our council meeting.
Yeah.
I think you're right, yeah.
Okay, well, I can't make that one either then. So, yeah, we'll have to find out the date on that one, and I think that, I don't know if it was report.
Find that out, and then Matthew and I can flip a
Yeah, well,
coin or
yeah,
something.
maybe we'll arm wrestle or something.
I'll beat you.
Well,
And Councillor Roth, if, the PLCA, I'll be an alternate for you if, you're
that's fine.
unavailable. I'll definitely go down, and I'd like to build some rapport and some relationships down by the lake.
You can have it if you want.
No, it's, well, I'm a pretty busy guy. Well, was it, how long's the term?
Why? Who is it?
Okay, so that concludes that, so we just need a vote on that now, right?
Yep.
Is there any other questions or comments before I call a vote on it? Oh, okay, all in favor of seeing that? Okay, carried.
So just to be clear, we're adding the committee that,
Correct. Yes, we are. Yep.
Sign both of these, what's this one? All right, where are we at now?
Sorry.
Whoop. Bear with me a second.
And Sarah's going to speak to that. She'll present it.
And what did we resolve about the safe communities?
Pardon me?
What did we decide with safe communities?
We're going to come back once I'm just trying to actually confirm their schedule. If I can confirm it at this meeting, we can discuss it. If not, we can bring it back next time.
I thought we agreed that you're taking it.
Oh, I am, okay. The safe community, not the farm one, but the.
Sorry, yes, Councillor Bulmer, correct. We have you down for that one.
Okay. I better figure out when they meet too.
No, sorry. You're at, which one are you asking about, Mr. Balmer?
Safe Communities Wellington Committee.
Oh,
Safe Communities Wellington
Yeah,
Committee.
you and I opted out, so.
okay, correct.
Okay?
Send us a list of what.
Yeah. What the heck did we agree to?
Yeah. Yep. All right, moved by Councillor Bulmer, seconded by Councillor Roth, that council receive and endorse the Guelph Pleasant Transition Comments Report prepared by the County of Wellington Planning and Development Department, and the report be forwarded to the City of Guelph as a request for response to the issues and comments outlined in the report. And I believe we're going to have the county planner come down and discuss. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Let me just get my report out. Am I getting feedback or is it okay?
No, it's okay.
Good, good.
Thank you very much. So the purpose of this report is to provide a review and comments for council concerning a document that was released by the City of Guelph called Draft Directions, and it's a framework for the Clare Maltby Secondary Plan. And it provides a kind of a high-level key policy direction as it relates to the development of the Clare Maltby Secondary Plan. So for those of you that might not be familiar with it, I've provided the plan boundary and given the context within the township of Puslynch. I know when I work on studies in my jurisdiction, I tend to cut the line off right at the boundary. So you were missing as context, so you're in there. In terms of what this process is about, it's dealing with a revised plan boundary that's about 1,000 acres, and it's primarily residential in character, but it does provide a combination of different densities and types of land uses, and is planned to accommodate a minimum population of 15,000. The city has a three-phased project identified, and the township has been involved via myself. I believe Kelly Patzer was involved prior to my involvement, and also Stan Denhode for hydrology and hydrogeology. So the purpose of this particular report is to deal specifically with the urban-rural transition. And as I noted in the report, Council has previously commented on the transition area back in June, when at that time we had a preferred community structure before us, and it's kind of a preliminary land use plan, really, that they were looking at. It's pretty key, and so through a council resolution, the main issues there were in terms of of course, the mutual boundary, but also the high-density residential land use that's proposed at Gordon Street, and asking for it to be changed to low and medium density residential land use designations. The city did not make those changes to the mapping, and they approved the preferred community structure without any observable changes that I could see. And so that document, or that plan, will form the basis for the technical work and modeling to follow. It'll form the basis for the draft policies to be developed and the land use schedule. And just to back up, a secondary plan, if some of you haven't worked with them, it's much like an official plan, but it's a more detailed, specific land use policy document. So it's similar in form to a secondary plan, to an official plan. So what I did when I reviewed the document is it has a number of key policy areas that they're identifying, some high-level issues. I honed in on the urban-rural transition section to see how they've dealt with that. I've highlighted those, and I've pulled out comments on each of those items. I'll try to go through those quickly since you've had this report to absorb. They did provide a 60-meter minimum depth for the transition area. I'm asking that they clarify where that would be measured from. They did say it would be from the north side of Maltby, but I think it should be, not from the edge of pavement. It should be from the right of way, so that that doesn't take in the sidewalk and boulevard and those sorts of things. Three-story maximum height I'll speak to in a moment, and the rear lane as well. Item 4, larger building setbacks from Maltby Road to allow for landscaping will be encouraged. And again, looking at what encourages means, those types of words are very important in the future, and when they come up with design guidelines and other more detailed policies. So I'm recommending that the actual size of that landscape setback be defined, and I've provided some examples of why that is something that I think as a planner that the city should look at. So the two examples are on Victoria Road, and they're not far from the secondary plan area. I know I notice them every time I drive down Victoria Road to come to Puslynch, because the first example is I think as good as we could hope for. It's a fairly natural looking berm. It's got some really nice mixes of mature landscaping on it, and it provides a good screen. And it does break up that urban limit with the farm fields across the way. And then you can see as time went on, the city, for whatever reason, was not able or willing or interested in getting that wide of a buffer. And I don't know the particulars of how that happened, but what we can see is that the other example really isn't effective, and a flat 2 to 3 meter wide area isn't going to achieve much. It's not an equal comparison. They're not. The landscaping isn't fully matured, but I don't expect it would look much different than it does now. The other thing that I did then is I took that urban-rural transition area category, and I compared it with other key policy areas within the document, just to see how they jive. So the 3-story maximum carries through well with the other low, medium, and high-density residential designations. So if they didn't put that in place, you'd be looking at a 6-story maximum for even low density residential. So that would be a different interface for sure. What concerned me the most was the Gordon Street corridor, which has its own policy section. And I think it might be an oversight, perhaps, but that's where the taller residential buildings will be directed to. And that would include something like a 14 to 18 story maximum, and taller buildings considered at strategic locations. And it's an intersection, so I'm concerned that could be considered a strategic location even at Maltby. And the issue is you could have 3 stories, but there are no policies that talk about how it would transition up to the 14 to 18 stories. What I did find is within the document, the city did express the need for appropriate transitions to the neighborhoods to the east and west within the secondary plan, but they didn't speak to the area to the south. So they talk about using design elements like podiums, angular planes, and setbacks or step backs, which basically transitions that building height at an angle away from the road, and that would certainly be something that we would want to see here. If they don't remove that high density designation, which they haven't done yet. So that was something that I called out, but I've continued to advance that comment that the township would prefer to see medium density residential in that area. And then I think I've just reviewed the comments that I had on the Gordon Street corridor. So that's where things are. I think the last comments from the municipality were good and clear. They were in the form of a council resolution, and I'm hopeful that a bit more of an in-depth discussion through this report might be helpful to city staff and might prompt a meeting or some kind of a conversation. I'd certainly be open to something like that. In terms of next steps, I've laid out, they've got a pretty good time frame that they're looking at following first quarter of 2019, prepare draft secondary plan. So there are still opportunities for public input through an open house, an information center, and they also have their statutory public meeting that would be coming up. So I'm certainly committed to continue monitoring those processes on behalf of the township. And the third quarter would be where they're intending to bring the final secondary plan and the master environmental servicing plan to council. So that ends I've got the 2 resolutions at the front, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spoulos?
Yes, I support exactly what you've said there. The transition zone, the medium density at the edge, and the 60 meters from the North Street line, and also the setbacks for landscaping. You mentioned that you're continuing to work with them. Are you as an observer or a participant on a particular committee?
Right, and I'm continuing to participate with them within the process that they've laid out. I did attend, there was a public session a number of months ago, but that doesn't mean that I had any opportunity to provide. It was a presentation with no ability for exchange, where I would be able to represent, that's okay. They have a range of opportunities here. I am on a committee, and what I can do is find out how many more meetings they might have, and I've just kind of come on into this process with my involvement. Mark Pally at the county was also our representative, so I can confirm that for sure.
Okay, my concern is should we be putting a motion forward requesting that you participate, be allowed to participate more actively rather than a passive role? Would that be something would be appropriate?
Well, I think I am in the appropriate, slotted into the engagement that they have as part of this process. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Rowe?
Well, thank you very much for this report and this work, and I just basically was going to ask if there's anything we should be doing as a council to help you have a better chance of getting some of these requests.
Well, I think I appreciate that, and I know this is important to the township, and I'm one person. I certainly, like I said, I'm committed to continuing to monitor the process, and I will keep Karen apprised of what's happening, and perhaps the township will be notified of public information sessions and the public meeting, and perhaps we'll need to have another conversation where I come in and address council again.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Oh, thank you so much. This is one of those mixed blessings, and when we look back over the history of this piece of property, it's a very significant part of the moraine. It performs a significant function, as we see from Mr. Denhode's comments, and it has provided that transition for a long time. And I can't help but think, we're wrestling with this and being as respectful and of their needs as our own as we comment on this, which is sometimes challenging when you look back on the process we were put through with Millburns, and they were so upset with us at the City of Guelph that it took us the OMB over one small parcel. And here we are wrestling with them very respectfully within their process on a very large change to the natural environment and the transition from the urban to rural. And it was that transition that I was looking for in this report as well. And I'm glad you mentioned the Victoria Road piece, because as I read through your report, I don't know, maybe I missed it, and the stuff we've read previously, there's lots of talk about the transition along from Maltby to north of Maltby, but I didn't see much about the transition from east of Victoria to west of Victoria. So just to clarify, if I understand, you're suggesting that we have enhanced buffering and transition on Victoria Road as well, then, which hasn't typically been discussed.
No, sorry. I was just speaking of Victoria to the north and how they had handled that. I mean, that's actually an interesting point, because the urban-rural transition area only covers Maltby. You're right.
And which it shouldn't. It's just as much a transition from along Victoria Road.
That's true, and there are some natural features that at the northern end of that, but there is a residential stretch as well, and those could go up to 6 stories, the way that it's written right now.
Could we consider then? I'd like to see that we try to wrap that transition around, recognizing, of course, that in the event that they expand in the future, they may want to remove that transition area. But in the meantime, while it remains rural across both those roads, I'd like to see a transition area incorporated on their side.
That's a fair comment, and I'm glad that you kind of picked up on that. That's good.
Is it too late to add that into our comments to the city?
It's certainly not too late to add it, whether or not they, we'll see, kind of.
Yeah, but it's still nice to. I would like to. I guess your report's already gone to the city, hasn't it?
No, actually, it hasn't.
Would you be comfortable adding something to that effect?
I can do that. Actually, Nina,
I think if all of council is in agreement with that, we can certainly add that and send out correspondence tomorrow on Friday to the City of Guelph.
Sure.
Well, this report hasn't gone to the city yet.
The report has not gone to them. I guess the question is, do we add it to the resolution, or do you want me to add more content to the report? Or I mean, I could do an addendum. Okay. But I don't have a lot of time to be able to do that. Yeah.
We can certainly add some wording to the resolution, if that would be okay. Perhaps Sarah and I could work after the meeting, because we understand the intent of the meeting, so we will add that to the resolution.
Okay. Yeah. The reason there isn't a lot of time is that the comments are, I think they're due technically, was it today or maybe Monday? Yeah, so unfortunately, it was all through the Christmas holidays that the deadline. So, and I guess the other thing that council could consider is whether or not you want to request the city to come to council to present specifically on this matter. And
They have in the past on this.
yeah, so that's another thing. And I mean, Stan's comments are attached. I did notice that they did add some verbiage on, on the moraine into the policy document and talked about how they might need to do more policy development in that area. And also, when I went through the city resolutions, they've added a representative. I guess there's a Galt Moraine, maybe a citizens group or some kind of a committee, and they've added a representative to the city's consultation group. So, I mean, they're open to still looking at things. That's a sense that I have from the council resolutions that they issued.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Goyda?
Thank you. I agree with all of the comments that you've made in here, and I would support all those. I do have a question that is, I'm not sure if it's related to this or not. I'm wondering about how traffic impacts are being dealt with. And I'm asking that because if we have all these medium and even high density proposed along this transition area, even though it's this rear access, I'm thinking back to Clare Road. At one point in time, there was no lights at Clare and Victoria, and if you wanted to turn left off of Clare Road onto Victoria, depending on what time of day, that lineup could be 50 cars long before they put those lights and a turning lane. And I'm looking at the map, and I'm trying to envision how people are going to travel around on this road, where there's on Maltby Road and on Victoria Road, where there's rural residences, and thinking, oh my gosh, these poor people are going to have lineups of cars as they look out their front window trying to turn left onto Gordon Street, or from Maltby left into I guess what's going to now be sort of like a subdivision, or left off of Victoria Road into. And I'm wondering where that kind of fits in. I know that's not really part of this document, but I do think it's something important to consider on behalf of the residents who are living on these roads and have all this potential increased traffic happening now in front of their residences.
I'm wondering if perhaps, Dawn, you might be able to respond to some of that. There's a whole other technical component to all of this work that's quite extensive as well.
Yeah.
They call it the MESP. It's a Master Environmental Servicing Plan, and it covers the whole gamut of all of the technical requirements. I don't know if you have anything to add, Dawn.
So maybe to help clarify, so has the traffic studies and the impacts, that's already been dealt with, and there isn't going to be any change in that? I think that's kind of where your concern is where are we in that process? And I get we're dealing with the buffer zone here.
Yeah.
Councilor Goyda is asking, has the traffic studies and the consequences of the 15,000 people already been dealt with, or is that ahead of us yet?
Well, that's why I'm asking Dawn, because Kelly Patzer was our rep prior to that, and I don't know if she brought that to you to comment on. Okay, so
Don't know.
I don't have an answer for that.
So maybe that would be a good part of asking the city to come and make a presentation to us. We need to know about the traffic studies as well. So sorry, not to.
Yeah.
If you
Now's the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it would be important for us to at least understand what the plan is for that, because it's both roads are narrow roads, and I don't know. I don't know if there's plan to widen the roads or put turning lanes in, but I don't, I'm not a professional in it, but I don't know.
4 lanes straight down, so it's gonna be more difficult to turn from those roads.
I know if I lived on either of those roads across from this, I would want to know that.
Yeah, and Dawn, in fairness to you, Maltby, is that completely under the city's jurisdiction, or? Yeah. So it's their road. They upgraded that a few years ago, or I know they talked about putting bike lanes in, and it's a collector, I believe.
West of Gordon.
Yeah, I believe it is. I think the whole thing was to tie in with coming out of the industrial to tie down into there.
Right.
Okay, so just to sort of clarify, so we're going to amend the motion. We're going to add the verbiage with respect to the rural roads that Sarah and I will work on. Did council want to add in verbiage in there asking the city staff to come and provide a presentation to council, especially with particular to the traffic studies? Is that correct? That I can add that in as well?
I believe so, but I have some questions for the planner prior, so it may be some more added to that. Is council okay with asking, well, let me finish asking you some questions. Once, Councillor Goyda, if you have any more questions.
No, that's all my question.
Welcome, thank you. I agree with you. I think that buffer, but I think that's by Summerfield Drive.
Yes.
So that was put in quite a few years ago,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's obvious they've gotten away from doing that buffer.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement with wanting to have the city come here, but I think we need to have some specific points so they just don't come and tell us the same thing over.
Sure.
My question to you is, when I'm reading it, and the next report is about the water flow on the property, and, you know, we obviously have a concern of it coming over Maltby Road. Has there been any discussion on the sodium from the winter treatment of the roads and the effects? I think Stan's report says there really isn't a direct link to Mill Creek, if I read that correctly, but the city uses a lot of salt on the roads, and as a plan, have we discussed that with them? So that might be part of, with them coming to make a presentation. I'd be concerned with their winter treatment of this large area and where that water's going to go, and ensuring it does the sodium. I'll give you an example. At Edinburgh and Gordon, they put a high-rise for student housing, and there's a marsh behind it, and they have either collection points, and they're not allowed to use salt on the driveway. They have it heated through the building to protect this sensitive wetland. So if they're willing to do that for, you know, properties not that far from our border, I think we need to be cognizant of where this runoff is going to go and what's in it. It's not just clean water runoff, I mean, especially in the winter. But back to this, I agree with you that we need to have them here, have them discuss it, and see if it's a Guelph seems to be a green community. I think that it should be a priority to have more trees and a bigger buffer. And I'd like to hear that from them, and some of that verbiage when it's considered instead of shall. Shall is an important word. I don't know how much leverage in the past, as Councillor Bulmer mentioned with Millburns, they took us to the OMB. I'm not saying we want to go this route, but if the city pushes back and just, you know, possibly doesn't want to, you know, accommodate us whatsoever, do we have any avenue to express our concerns with with the OMB now being, what is it called now, the LPAT?
There still would be an opportunity for that kind of appeal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to finalize, now, when you were making your presentation, you mentioned something about a conversation with us. Did you want to have another meeting with us to sit down to see where our focus was as well? Or was that just with the city? I just wasn't sure if I misunderstood you.
I think that was after the meetings with the city. Sarah mentioned she would come back
That's
here.
right. That's right.
So I think we want to change the resolution, and
Yeah, so we have the other wording, and I can add wording that council requests City of Guelph staff to come and provide an overview of the project, including, and I can add specifics such as the traffic studies, the sodium impacts, and the water treatment in the area.
and the verbiage to, you know, to change it to shall for the buffers. You can word it more appropriately then. Do we need a vote on that?
No, so just the main mover and the seconder, as long as they're okay with that amendment, then we can go.
Councillor
So it was
Roth, are you
Bulmer and
still
Roth.
for that amendment to the?
Sure.
Okay, is there any other questions?
I
or
just
comments?
wanted to, and we talked about the addition of the rural transition to being,
Yes.
including that on the.
Yes, correct.
website. Thanks.
I just have one comment. I was wondering if it would be appropriate for you to reach out to the mayor and just talk to him ahead of time, saying there is a concern here.
I will definitely try.
Okay.
Councillor Bulmer, I'll speak to you after that.
That's an interesting suggestion. When we had some similar issues with the Hanlon Creek Business Park, I'm sure Ms. Wilhelm may remember that, on the west side of the Hanlon, we did have a joint council-to-council meeting to discuss issues to help see where the common ground was. And there was some positive outcomes of that, because there were concerns from residents on our side that, and I don't know if that's a possible in this case, but it has been done in the past to get right, when you're face to face, it's sometimes easier to resolve those issues and find that common ground.
Absolutely, and conversation is always beneficial, so I think that's a great suggestion. With our timeline, it would have to be, we'd have to do it relatively soon, I believe. I mean, where are we with this, but maybe we can organize it after budgets and, okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? So, all in favor of this motion by Councillor Spose? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, where are we? Down here. Which one was that one? Oh,
We still have the other Hardin report.
no, we got the correspondence from Hardin Environmental with respect to the Claire Malt Bee, and where am I? Any comments or questions with that, Councillor Spoulos?
It has just been forwarded to the city of Guelph for their comments back. Yes, thank you.
No, sorry, it has not been forwarded yet. It'll be forwarded on Monday along with this resolution, so it'll be forwarded together.
Okay, Councillor Roth?
That's fine.
Councillor Palmer?
That's good.
Good, thanks.
Yep, I am in agreement, as long as it's forwarded. Okay, so where we just pointed to? All right, so roads and parks, we have none. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Recreation Department, none. Mayor's update, what do I have for you guys? I spoke earlier of the committee meetings that I attended for roads. Right now, the county is in full throttle approving the budget. Looks like it's going to be a 2.7% increase. Brock Road is going to tender soon with construction in 2019, 2020. That's going to be funded through accrued debt and some development charge. Doesn't look like the scope of the project's going to change much for us. Roma's coming up, we're going to have our delegations, and other than that, I don't believe we have anything. Next is the notice of motion. I think Councillor Sapoulis.
Yeah, I'm going to defer that until the budget discussions, because it'll be a more appropriate opportunity to discuss this.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, it's a question on the construction of the road. I believe when we discussed it last time, Don Creed mentioned that they're delaying it by a year. Because we had the sidewalk budgets in 2019, and you pushed it out to 2020, I believe.
Yeah, that is correct with I have not received any confirmation of the limits of construction for 2019.
I'm not 100% sure as well. I know that they discussed it, it's in the budget for 19, and it's separated into two components. I believe in 19, it's the roundabouts, the two roundabouts, and then in 2020 is the connecting the two with the reconstruction. So that's probably why we could defer the sidewalk money to
Okay,
2020.
and my concern is we don't want to miss out on it. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
My next roads committee meeting, I'll ask that specific question just to clarify, and I'll report back.
Thank you.
Okay. Where are we at? Okay. Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Ballmer. The council approves the following committee meetings. October 1st, 2018 Heritage Meeting. November 13th, 2018 Planning and Development Meeting. November 13th, 2018 Committee of Adjustment. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Municipal announcements. Do we have any municipal announcements? Anybody? Councillor Spoulis?
I have none.
Councillor Roth?
I have no.
Councillor Bomer?
Nothing.
Councillor Goida?
I would just like to say that I noticed that the streetlights outside our house in
Oh, yeah.
Michael have now been converted to LEDs. They actually seem brighter, or I don't know, they're different, but they're pretty
brighter.
cool.
Yeah.
And I also just noticed on the website that we can now renew burn permits and apply for dog tags online, which I think is pretty cool, so.
Good.
The only municipal announcement I have is just an update on my activity. My family and I attended the free skates during the holidays at the Murph, and it was it's a nice experience, and I went relatively unnoticed. Sometimes I wonder if people know who I am or not, but yeah, it's great. And it's one of those things where if somebody says to me, I pay this amount of money in taxes, what do I get for my tax money? Well, you can go skate at the Murph with your family and enjoy a few hours, so that's excellent. So okay, so moved by Councillor Ballmer, seconded by Councillor Roth, that the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. A, being a bylaw to appoint a closed meeting investigator. B, a bylaw to provide an interim tax levy for 2019 and the collection thereof. Being a bylaw to appoint a building officer, Angie Zamia, for the Corporation of the Township of Puslinch. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Congratulations, Angie. Okay. Moved by Councillor Roth, seconded by Councillor Ballmer. The following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 004-2019 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the Corporation of the Township of Puslinch at its meeting held on the 9th day of January 2019. All in favor? Carried. And what time is that at? 2. Oh. Okay. There we go. Moved by Councillor Ballmer, seconded by Councillor Roth, that council hereby adjourns at 2:41. All in favor? Carried.